Hey guys, it's Luke Yon, and today I'm going to be discussing the books that I read in January and February. I'm home for spring break right now, so I thought it was a good time to talk about my first 2 months of reading. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure how many books I read in January and February, but I know a lot of them were books for school, so I'm going to try to keep those brief, but yeah, let's just jump right into the video. The first book that I read in 2025 was East by Edith Pattou. This is a YA retelling of East of the Sun, West of the Moon, which is a Norwegian fairy tale, I believe, and this book follows a girl named Rose, who is one of like 6 or 7 kids. I forget the exact number, but her mother is very superstitious about the direction in which her children are born. It's very weird to say in abstract, but I promise it makes sense in context. But basically, Rose ends up being a north-facing child, which is bad, and there's like this whole situation. And basically, the story revolves around her being approached by this white bear that's on the cover, and he offers her a journey to his castle. And a bunch of crazy things ensue from there. I liked this book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was not my favorite. It definitely felt very, very long. Like, it is nearing 500 pages, and it just never felt like the length was warranted. We jump between a bunch of different perspectives. So we follow Rose, we follow her brother, we follow her father, her mother at times, I think, maybe, and then we follow the white bear. There's this troll queen, and I was kind of just like okay with the book the entire time. I did think the ending was very interesting, but a lot of this book is like travel and just like not a lot happening until the final section. So it was solid. I don't think I'm going to read the sequel, but it didn't do anything wrong. Then I picked up Ruthless, Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series. It's the sequel to Divine Rivals and the conclusion of the duology. If you did not know, this series like blew up the last couple of years, and it follows these 2 characters, Iris and Roman, who are kind of competing for this position at this newspaper that they work at, but it is also set in a world that is being plagued by this war between these 2 gods. So it's kind of like World War I, but if the 2 fighting powers were like actual gods with magic. And the first book deals a lot with that. In the second one, we're kind of dealing with the fallout of that. The 2 characters are separated in this book, so they have to come together, and it's this whole big battle. I don't want to say too much about this because it obviously is the sequel, so I don't want to spoil anything from book 1, but I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, definitely going to end up on my favorite books of the year list. I think both of the characters really came into their own in this installment, and I just love the romance in the series so much. I'm usually not a huge fan of romance, like, all the time. Like, I do read romance books here and there, but, like, in big fantasy stories, I'm not always usually attached to the central romance, but I loved it in this book. There's so much tension and yearning, and it's so good. I love both of the characters together and apart, and I really love the side characters. I thought it was perfectly paced, and I loved the ending as well. I thought the conclusion was just perfect, so if you have not gotten around to this duology, it is definitely worth the hype. Then I read Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Shannon McGuire. This is the 10th book in the Wayward Children series, which is a series about, it's a series of novellas about children who go to Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children after being swept up in a fantasy world, and they go to this school to be snapped back to reality. And every other book, so like, every other book is set, or follows a character going into their world, and then the next book is like characters at Eleanor West's home. It makes sense once you like know the structure of the series, but this is following a character named Nadia, and she is from Russia, and she's adopted by an American family, and she only has 1 arm, and basically she ends up going to this underwater world where there's all these like turtles and things. I don't want to spoil too much because this book is only like 150 pages, but I really loved it. The Wayward Children series always has a lot of great messages about a ton of different things. This one definitely focuses on people who are differently abled and how sometimes, especially when they're children, they have choices stripped away from them. And yeah, I thought it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The only thing I did not love was like the emphasis on Russia, and Nadia's like, I love Russia, like every 5 seconds. Seemed a little bit tone deaf to me with the current climate, but I don't know. I mean, Nadia was introduced very early on in the series before the invasion, but still, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way at times. But I did really like the fantasy world, and I thought the ending was super intriguing as well. And yeah, this series is definitely an auto-read for me. Then I read Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibañez. This is the sequel to What the River Knows, and is the conclusion to the Secrets of the Nile duology. The first book follows a girl named Inez who is living in Argentina with her family, and she has always wanted to go to Egypt because her parents are archaeologists there for, large parts of the year, and something happens and she ends up going to Egypt. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about the first book because I went in kind of not knowing a lot, and it was really fun to figure it out as the story progressed. It's kind of like a mystery. It's set in the late 19th century, so there's a bit of historical aspects as well, and it deals a lot with Egyptian history and Egyptian mythology as well, which is always something that I love. And this book definitely deals a lot with the Library of Alexandria, and it was super fun. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I do think I liked the first book a little bit more, but this one definitely has a lot more twists and turns. I did see some of them coming from like a mile away, but for the most part it was pretty entertaining, and I liked the romance as well, even though that was sometimes a little bit like all over the place. I don't know. Everything that I liked about this book, there were like some things that I didn't love about it, so like each component, so that's why I didn't give it a full 5 out of 5 stars, but it's a very fun series, and you can kind of just get lost in it and transport yourself to this 19th century Egyptian setting. And yeah, I everything that I liked about the first book is in here as well, so can't really complain, and I would definitely recommend it if you like Egyptian history and you like sort of travel stuff. Yeah, again, same with Ruthless Vows. I can't say a ton about what is in this book, but if you're intrigued about the Library of Alexandria, definitely pick this one up. Okay, and now we're getting into the first book that I read for school, starting with this new semester. This was actually a reread for me, and that was A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. I'm in a Shakespeare class, so definitely a lot of Shakespeare books in the next few months. And I read this book in like 8th grade, and I didn't really like it, but on reread I did enjoy it more. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Not really going to talk about the school books very often, unless I have like something very profound to say, but yeah, this one was good. Then I did my annual reread of the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson, so Truly Devious, The Vanishing Stair, The Hand on the Wall, The Box in the Woods, and 9 Liars. I've talked about all of these books many, many times on my channel, so you can definitely find my thoughts throughout the years, but one of these days I definitely want to do a deep dive review on the series and maybe like do a reading vlog or something, I don't know, but maybe when all the books are out. But yeah, I love this series so much. I talk about it all the time, and it's one of my favorites ever. Then the next Shakespeare book that I read was As You Like It. This one was pretty fun as well. I've been like intrigued about reading this book for a really long, or this play for a really long time, because I last year read Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, and that is sort of inspired by this Shakespeare play, and I can definitely see some parts of it, but for the most part they're pretty different stories. But I did still like this one. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars as well. Then for my other English class, the first book that we read was another reread for me, and that was Emma by Jane Austen. I love this book, so I was really excited to get to reread it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Same rating as the first time, but I just think this is such a fun story, and I feel like I appreciated it a lot more on reread because there are so many just tiny little things in this book that you don't always pick up on the first time around. But Jane Austen truly just shines with characters. I love Emma. I love Harriet. I love just all the characters. They're all so distinct in my head, and I always like knew what one of them was going to do, and it was just really fun to get to experience the story again. And I wrote a whole essay about it, so I don't have much more to say. But yeah, definitely of the 3 Jane Austen books that I've read, probably my favorite. Then I picked up The Virgin's Lover by Philippa Gregory. This is one of her Tudor and Plantagenet novels, and it revolves around 3 characters. So we follow Robert Dudley, his wife Amy, and Queen Elizabeth I, and the intertwining relationships of the 3 that's all I knew going into the book, and I have to say, this is easily my least favorite Philippa Gregory book. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I have always kind of counted on Philippa Gregory to deliver a just entertaining historical read, but this one was so boring. I did not like any of the characters whatsoever. I found them so utterly frustrating, and this book is pretty long. It's like 450 pages, and it just felt like the same thing over and over. I felt like scenes were repeating. I felt like the characters were having conversations for the 50th time, and it just dragged on and on and on. And like the last 50 pages, I like, when I was halfway through the book, I like read the synopsis on the back, and I was like, what is this even about? Because I do not know. And then basically the synopsis talks about the last 50 pages of the book, so I was waiting from the halfway point until then to get to that, and then it was just wrapped up super quickly. So yeah, and then I also looked at reviews on Goodreads, and I was not the only one. This seems to be a very generally disliked Philippa Gregory book, and I can absolutely understand why. I was looking forward to it because I love Queen Elizabeth I. I think she's a super interesting historical figure, but it mostly just kind of went from annoying character to annoying character. They were making really dumb decisions and whining and complaining the entire time, and there were also some glaring historical inaccuracies in this book that I really did not appreciate. So, yeah, I still will read Philippa Gregory books, and I still enjoy her stories, but this one was not it. Then I read Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare, and this is probably my favorite, like, new-to-me Shakespeare play. I'm going to talk about one more later in this video, but yeah, I really liked this one. I thought it was super funny. It's obviously one of the comedies, and I thought each of the characters was super interesting. I wrote a whole essay on Act 1, Scene 5 of this book, and it was pretty fun to write, and I mean, I do generally like writing essays, but this one was really fun to do, like, a deep dive on this play, because I think Olivia and Maria and Viola and Sebastian and the Duke are all super fun characters, and we also watched She's the Man, which is a retelling of this, and it was fun to just be immersed in this story. So I gave this one like 3.5, 4 out of 5 stars. Very solid Shakespeare play that I would definitely recommend. And then the next book that I read for my other English class was Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, and this is another classic that follows Emma Bovary, and she basically hates her life. She's married to this guy who is a doctor, and they end up going to this French village to live in, and she is just very disillusioned with the banality of married life and the working middle class, and it was an interesting story. I liked the beginning, and then it kind of just became the same thing over and over again, which I know is purposeful because it's supposed to show the monotony of life at this time for people in this situation, but it just became it became a lot and too much. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was good, and it was like a solid classic. It was pretty easy to read, like, language-wise, but the plot just kind of It never, like, there was never another layer from the beginning. It was sort of just, like, from the start, that's pretty much what you got the entire time. So, not my favorite, to say the least. And then I did another reread at the end of February that spilled into March, so I'll be talking about the rest of this series in my March-April wrap-up. And that was The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, although this time I read the 10th anniversary special edition author's preferred text. I first read this book and this series in 2021, and before this new edition was published, and I wanted to reread the series ever since these were announced because I did enjoy it at that time, and I also wanted to catch up on the series because the 5th book was coming out in February, so I decided to pick up the revised edition, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I ended up raising my rating from 3 to 4 stars, and I don't know if it was the revisions that made me enjoy the story so much more, or what, but yeah, I definitely loved this first book a lot this time, and I always liked books 2 and 3 on the first read, but I knew that book 1 was the weakest, and it's definitely the one with the most revisions, and, like, I think there's, like, 50 extra pages in this new version, and I just thought every aspect was improved upon. I love Samantha Shannon's writing, and you can definitely see her, like, more current style being infused in this 10th anniversary revised edition, and I just loved it so much. I felt so transported. I could feel the characters so much more vividly. I felt like I was being immersed in all of the settings and Oxford and everything, and yeah, so definitely recommend this series, especially now that these beautiful new editions are out. Like, honestly, they're just so stunning, and I think that I'm so glad Samantha Shannon decided to do this because it improved upon this first installment immensely. And yeah, I mean, I raised my rating a whole star, so that has to say something. If you do not know, this series follows Paige Mahoney, who is living in a futuristic world where clairvoyants exist, but they're being hunted by this sort of alien race known as the Rephaim, who are these giants that had taken over a bunch of countries in Europe and declared it Scion republics. It's a very complex, intricate world, but and that was actually one of my problems with the beginning of the series, is that it was a lot of information all at once, but Samantha Shannon definitely revised it in a way that makes it more digestible, and I just love this world so much. It's so fascinating, and it becomes more complex and more intriguing with each installment. And in this book, this first installment, Paige is imprisoned in Oxford, the University of Oxford, which has become this, like, penal colony under Scion, and we meet Warden, who is in charge of taking care of her, but he is not like the other Rephaim, who are just hell-bent on taking over the world, basically. And it's like a dystopian, it's a futuristic story, it's fantasy, and all the clairvoyant stuff is so interesting. Paige is a dreamwalker, so she can literally jump into other people's dreamscapes, and it's fascinating. Please, please, please pick it up. It is so, so good. Then I picked up The Pale Dreamer by Samantha Shannon. This is a prequel novella to The Bone Season, and it follows Paige when she is working for Jackson Hall. And this one was really interesting as well. There's a lot of actual history in this story, so it was definitely a very solid novella, and it helped reacquaint me with some of the side characters that we meet later on in the series. Then I did a reread of The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon, the second book in the series. I remember this being my favorite one when I read it the first time, and I definitely feel like the revisions improved upon this story as well. Though there definitely are some fewer revisions in this book. Like, it's not as drastic as The Bone Season, where there were like whole new scenes and all these different things. So yeah, but I definitely loved this one as well. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars also. And this one kind of has like a murder mystery vibe. We're in London in this installment, and yeah, it was great. Again, I can't say too much, but a fantastic continuation of the story and a great setup for the rest of the series. And again, these books are just so pretty, these new editions, and it's so interesting to reread the series with like the revisions because yeah, it just, I don't know. I think it's really, really cool, and this book introduces a lot of new settings. There's a few new characters as well, and it's just super, it's a great read. And I also listened to the majority of this book on audio, so I would definitely recommend the audiobooks as well. And I'm going to be talking about the rest of the books in the series in my next wrap-up, because I finished out my reread of The Song Rising in the Dawn course, and then I actually continued with The Mask Falling and The Dark Mirror in March, so I'll be talking about that in a later video. And then the final book that I read in February was Hamlet by Shakespeare. This was another reread. I read this my senior year of high school, but I loved it. It's my favorite Shakespeare play that I've read. I'm sure you know what it's about, but yeah, definitely enjoyed that one as well. So those are all of the books that I read in January and February. I would love to know what you read in those months, and I would also love to know your thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned in this video. But that is it. I really hope you all enjoyed. All of my social media links are in the description box below, and I will see you soon for a new video. Bye!